battery cables, communication cables, and a circuit breaker. A large manual. This is different. That's nice they actually put it in here. Wow. And this one has a Wi-Fi adapter. This thing is small. Oh no! We have some shipping damage. The air intake filter has been compromised. And this metal got pushed inward. We should open it up and see if anything inside is damaged. If this is the only damage, it should work just fine. Today we have a new product by EG4. They make lithium iron phosphate batteries, and we reviewed them on this channel multiple times. But today they have an all-in-one solar power system that we're gonna check out. And it looks very similar to an MPP or a Growatt, but it's actually manufactured by a different company. And this one in particular has special features that other ones do not have, and I think you guys are going to find it interesting. So first off, this is a single phase 120 volt 3000 watt inverter. It does 94% efficiency at the AC output. Next, it has an AC charger with an 80 amp maximum output, so this can charge a large battery bank very quickly from the grid. Next, you can connect 5000 watts of solar panels to this model. Look how small this thing is. 5,000 watts of MPPT in this small little box. And what really sets it apart is it can handle 500 volts DC at that PV input. The highest I think MPP has is 450 volts DC, and most of the other ones right now are 250 volts. So 500 volts, that's like the highest in this category. And considering the input capacity, most people will get by with 1 or 2 strings of solar panels, which is very easy to wire. You do not need a combiner box. Especially if you have 2 strings, you could just use inline fuses for them if you want overcurrent protection, but that's not necessarily required. Typically anything over 2 strings is when you need a combiner box. So yeah, you can just connect solar panels directly to this and that's it. Next, it is lightweight. This thing is like 25 pounds or something. Like, think about the output. Also, you can connect these in parallel to a single battery for a split phase output if you want to have 240 volts. So 2 of these could do 6,000 watts. So let's open it up and see what's inside. Oh. There's only 2 screws holding on this front cover. Everything is hidden. Like in a Growatt or an MPP, they do not have this metal cover. So the battery connects right here, positive and negative, and then you use these holes with a screwdriver to tighten them down. And over here we have the AC input for the grid connection, the AC output for the inverter, and the solar input. So this is where that 500 volts connects. And notice there's no ground terminal for the AC output. In the manual, you have to connect the ground for the AC output to the case. And that's this screw down here. And these holes look pretty small. I hope I can fit the conductors through there. And we have the on and off switch, a breaker, communication ports, and generator start. And that's pretty much it. There's nothing else on this unit. So all we have to do is connect a battery and connect some solar panels and we'll have power. So very similar to an MPP where you have this funnel of plastic for the cooling fans, air intake up here, and then it brings air through the inverter circuit and out of the bottom with the fans. But the organization of circuits is quite different. Typically the MPPT is on top, especially on like the LV2424, but over here they slapped it up here and it's pretty small considering its output capacity. It's literally just this big. This is the MPPT right here, but very similar configuration of an MPP with the transfer switching and the ground neutral bond. It's all in this area. And the control circuit is up here and the communication right here. But yeah, pretty simple setup. I want to know who's designing these because there are a lot of similarities, but they're different manufacturers, at least I'm being told. I really need to go on a plane to China and actually see for myself because I don't know who to believe these days. Because this is different, but it is the same in some other ways, so I don't know. Now this one, like others, will be UL 1741 certified. I don't know when they're going to be listed. Everyone tells me they're going to be listed, but for now they're just certified. Which is good. That means they are tested to a certain standard. They have anti-islanding if there is a grid connection and all sorts of other cool features. But even when this is listed, it doesn't mean that it's on the approved list of inverters to use with grid feedback. So check with your local utility company to know if you can actually use this with the grid. For me personally, I always use these off-grid only, so I would stick to that if I were you guys. And the build quality is the same as a Growatt or an MPP. I don't see any substantial difference. The components, everything everything here looks pretty much the same. Now this is obviously a high frequency inverter, but it has a large surge capacity. It can do 50% more than its rated output for a whole 10 seconds, and then double that for like a second. But the best way to test that is with a real world test. And two of these would be a 240 volt, 6,000 watt output inverter. So pretty capable system for the price. This thing for the price is cheaper than the MPP, and I think the Growatt. I think it's about the same for the output capacity as a Growatt, but no one else has that 500 volt input. They've wanted to build this for a very long time. It's been like over a year, and they finally have this model now. Because everyone wants to get away from combiner boxes. They just want to hook up a single series string or 2 strings and be done with it. It saves more money and it's cheaper to wire, especially with rising copper costs. Now let's put this thing back together and hook it up to a battery. Now this unit comes with battery cables, so all we have to do is shove them inside and tighten them down. And MPP and Growatts do not come with these cables. This is their special thing with EG4. And the negative on the right. And you should always tug on them to ensure that they are tight with any battery cable. It's very important. And this is an EG4 battery, and it's designed to work with this unit. So we're going to go through all of the steps to connect these and to establish communication between the battery and the all-in-one system. So first we set the main power switch to the off setting, and then we put the circuit breaker on, and then look in the manual to see how you want to configure the DIP switches. Because this is the EG4 LL battery, we need it in this configuration, which means they'll look like this: on, and then off for the fourth one. Next, connect the battery cables to the terminals. And there should not be a spark if the BMS is set to off. If there's a spark, you're doing something wrong. So inverter is connected, circuit breaker is on, and now we can switch the BMS to on. And while the BMS is booting up, it will charge up the capacitors in this unit. And then we can turn this on, and it's working. I hate that beep so much. Now in order for these to communicate, you need a special cable, and it comes with the unit inside. So you're gonna have to use this one right here. This is RS485 to what looks like USB, but over here it's labeled RS485 on the unit. So first this plugs in right here, and the other end of the cable plugs in right here. And then we need to enable one setting on this unit so that they can establish a connection. And in the manual under setting 5 battery type, we're going to set this to lithium 4 or EG4 protocol. So hold down enter and go to number 5. And then number 4, press enter, and there we go. Oh, look at that. And it just communicated because the state of charge indicator just updated. This battery is at 100% and now it shows that it's full. And right here it shows the percentage state of charge and how many amp hours are available. And it should always be that easy to set up. Jack Kapir said that there's communicate with some inverters, and I guess a lot of people are having trouble not being able to get them to communicate. After you establish communication, you can change setting 43, 44, and 45. And these modify the cycling bandwidth. So instead of using voltage for high and low voltage disconnect, you use the state of charge that is determined by the shunt in the battery, which means you could set the low voltage DC cutoff for like 5%. So once you're at 5%, it will turn off the inverter in this unit. Personally, I like to charge to 100% and discharge to 0%. If you're using it for solar, especially for a large battery bank, calendar aging will kill these cells before cycling will ever. Now, one benefit of this communication system is you don't have to set up anything really. This battery will tell this unit how to charge. And if it's getting at a high state of charge, it will actually throttle the current from the solar charging system to whatever the battery is designed to handle, which in the end is very easy for beginners. You just connect one cable, change one setting, and that's it. You don't have to worry about setting the absorption and all of those other settings. The battery will control this unit. Also, with communication setup, if anything goes wrong with this battery, it will turn off the inverter. So before the BMS goes into protection mode, it will control this all-in-one unit to protect itself through that means first. Now let's find out the standby consumption of this unit. And I'm seeing 1.3 amps, but on the shunt it says 1.2 amps. So let's call it 1.25. And that's at 53.2 volts. So 66 watts. For this size inverter, that's a bit high actually, because the LV6548 does more than double the output of this one, and it has only a little bit more. It's like 77 watts, I believe. So the standby consumption is not that great, unfortunately. But it is better than an LF inverter, and we'd have to compare it to a Growatt. I think Growatts are only like 45 or something. So let's do a quick test and compare the idle consumption of this unit to the Growatt 3000. This is pretty much an LV2424 on steroids, so a higher output capacity and a couple other features. I'm pretty sure people that want to buy this are going to be comparing it to this model. So yeah, let's see if there's a big difference or not. And now the inverter's on. The idle consumption is 57 watts. I thought it was much lower. So slightly lower, but not that big of a difference that I thought. Practically the same as the EG4. So the manual also shows you how to configure these inverters if you have 2 or 3 or 4, or if you want to have a split phase output. But the wiring diagram is very similar to MPP, and it doesn't really show where the ground is supposed to connect. So I guess it will just be case to case, but I wonder in split phase output if there's current on the ground. We could test this out. Let's see if there's continuity between the ground and the neutral, or the case and the neutral of the AC output when the inverter is on. Aw, darn it. So this has the same configuration as an LV6548 and most other all-in-one systems. So in a split phase configuration, you're gonna have current on the ground, unfortunately. I'm sure there's probably a screw just like the MPPs that you can remove, and it will get rid of this ground neutral bond. I was hoping it wasn't connected. That would be really nice. Now let's connect the Wi-Fi module and see how well that works. Oh, so it's this port with this cable and this adapter. Oh, we have to create an account, darn it. So the app asks to scan the barcode. Why do I need an account to do this? It needs my address, my actual address. Are you kidding me? God dang it, why? This is confusing. I cannot get it to work. I don't understand what's going on here. No way. I got it to work. Oh my gosh, that was not easy. Holy cow. Be sure to follow these directions precisely. If you don't, or if something isn't inputted correctly, or you're still connected to the wrong Wi-Fi, it's gonna make it very hard to set up. I even had some error codes saying that because my network name has a period, I can't connect to it. But then eventually it started working, so it's tough, but it should work eventually. So this is the main page, and if you want to do data logging and chart things over time, this is where you do it. So load power, and then grid power, and then analysis is pretty cool. You have all of these options that you can plot on a graph. And then the data tab tells you more about the inverter. And then the setting tab, you can actually change all of the settings for the inverter remotely. And yeah, it shows battery type, high DC protection voltage, bulk charging voltage, and everything else. You can do it remotely. Output source priority, input voltage range, all sorts of cool stuff. So it's hard to connect at first, but it does work really well once you get it to work. And because this is connected to your home network system, you can access these settings and change anything you want remotely. I've actually never tested the MPP or Growatt Wi-Fi adapters, so this is a first for me. Anyways, let's move on. Let's connect a load and see how well this system works. So please do not copy this at home. We have a 3-conductor and ground Romex, and we're gonna run 2 outlets from the AC output. So first, a 48-volt battery charger for my main system. This is not safe. But you're adults, so you guys can figure that out. And this battery can support 4,800 watts, so this load should be possible. Now we're at 2.7 kilowatts. We're pulling 58 amps from the battery. Actually, I want to pull 3,000 watts, so let's replace this battery charger with another heat gun. And we're at 101% of its output capacity. Exactly 3,000 watts. It's still not updating, it's pretty slow. So even though we have 3 kilowatts, it's still showing the previous load, and even if I refresh, oh, there it is. So it takes like 3 or 4 minutes for this to update. So for a test, let's run this as long as possible. If it cuts off, it fails the test. If it runs this battery to 0, then it passed the test. And this will take like an hour and a half, so we'll be back soon. It just turned off. 20%, so I think the settings need to be changed. Unless it actually turned off, that's not good. Yep, here it is. So when you enable this communication between the battery and the unit, number 45, the default will be 20%. And I do not like that, so I'm gonna set that to 0% so it can cycle all the way down. Oh, weird. The lowest you can go is 3%. All right, it should be able to run the load all the way down to 3% now. I'm glad we found that setting. That's not a good default. I'm surprised the default's not like 5 or maybe 10%. 20%'s a bit too conservative. They might do this on purpose because these batteries, when cycled to 20 or 10%, can last to 7,000 cycles. But like I said previously, calendar aging will probably kill them faster. Unless you're cycling these quickly, then you do want to discharge to 20%. But if you're using it for solar, you can use any setting you want. So we'll come back when it turns off again. It just turned off again and it wasn't recording. Gosh dang it. And it cut off at exactly 3% state of charge. So the communication system is actually working. This is attached to the AC input. We're gonna plug it in and see what happens. And I don't know what the settings are, so let's just see what it comes with. Here we go. Oh, darn it. Just shut down my whole shop. Dang it. So we're gonna power it off the off-grid solar power system. Oh wow, oh, so it's doing bypass right now. Let's turn the inverter off. I wanna see how fast it can charge. 30 amps. So 1,500 watts going into this battery right now. And it says the default setting is 30 and the maximum is 80 amps, which is 3,800 watts. So you can charge very quickly if you connect the proper size cable to this AC input. But that's a good default setting if you're charging from a house outlet. So it actually works. This system actually worked. It passed all the tests, but what I hate is that app. They could have done a better job with the app. I also found spelling errors on the app, and I do not like that at all. But I like how they got the communication down, and it seems like a pretty robust unit. It's like a more upgraded LV2424, but that connects to a 48-volt battery. And it's nice that they finally have documentation. I mentioned that in my previous videos that I think Signature Solar needs a packet of papers with every product that they sell, talking about the wiring configuration. So that's pretty cool. Now with this model, you're paying for the convenience so that it can communicate with a Signature Solar specific battery, not Jacopere, not SOK, not Trophy. So if you have a lot of these batteries and you have a server rack from them, if you buy this unit, it will all work together. But you won't get that functionality with other batteries, so keep this in mind. This unit also comes with battery cables and a circuit breaker. So if you want to add this to each individual unit, it comes with one. If you have a lot of batteries, I would recommend a T-class fuse. Large lithium iron phosphate battery banks, a T-class fuse will offer you the best protection. Now something to consider is if you buy their budget model lithium iron phosphate in the server rack, and then you buy one or two of these, you will have the cheapest communication capable system with all the parts you need. Right now there's no other distributor that has this full package deal. Also, this unit is so small that you could put two of them on top of the Signature Solar server rack. So that would be really cool. You would have a 6,000 watt capable inverter for $1,600. So the same cost as an LV6548. And connecting it to the server rack would take minutes with the cables that are included. So you really don't have to buy anything else. They're really coming together with a full package finally. All you need is solar panels and to run those cables from your array, and that's pretty much it. You don't even need a combiner box. I also hope in the future that they have a 6,000 or 6,500 watt model to replace LV6548 or to compete with it, because that thing's going to be around for a long time. But that would be really cool, an EG4 specific large all-in-one system. But two of these is pretty capable. That would be a 10,000 watt array, but the LV6548 can do 12,000 watts and it has a larger AC output. So a lot of DIY people will still choose the LV6548. This is more beginner friendly if you want to buy a complete package, and it is really nice. It does work. So I hope you guys liked the video. If you think I missed anything, please let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.